Hello everyone, Turtleaxe here, bringing you another AFK Journey video. So Lenya's official trailer finally dropped. What I will do is first I will do a live reaction to her trailer, pausing from time to time to speak on various aspects of it. Next, I will pull up an image compiled by the folks at Analytica. They basically assembled and cropped together her entire full kit. So I will go skill by skill to basically speak on her viability across various game modes such as Dream Realm, Arena PvP, and AFK stage pushing, along with potential teams and teammates that she could be viable in. And then finally, I will speak on her value, whether she is worth your rate up tickets. So I can tell you right now that you might want to hold off on her, and I'll explain why. And then, yeah, just any final thoughts I have. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Personally selected by Lenya, a new captain of the Dust Patrollers.
Now, I know some people on Discord feel that her character design is lazy, but personally, I really like her character design. For an A-rank hero, you don't want her to be like too flashy, but at the same time, I do think her design is well put together. I like the gold with the green. You know, I think that definitely she is more designed than an NPC. And as we saw just now, she is an A-rank hero, which makes a lot of sense because I don't think that her kit is something that would make you be like, oh, she's like a Dream Realm destroyer. And even in Arena PvP, I do think that she will have her niche role, as you will see momentarily. And they did also show that she is a one-range rogue, Wilder faction.
Physical prowess, Lenya has both a delicate and a strong side. Thanks to her skill, Flurry Kicks, Lenya's critical hit rate increases at the start of each battle. And when her normal attack does deal crit damage, she follows up with a power kick that deals damage and stuns the enemy.
So she is a crit DPS who is capable of stunning enemies.
When actively cast, Lenya performs a handstand spin attack, dealing damage to nearby enemies in a small area. Moreover, Tornado Strike has a passive damage immunity effect. Lenya will dodge a normal attack from her current target, and then retaliates with a kick that deals damage and stuns.
Okay, so I want to speak on that because that was like several things at once. So 2 skills have been revealed so far, and right off the bat, these 2 skills are capable of stunning. She has many different ways of stunning. So, you know, people on Discord were thinking like, oh, you know, the stuns could be quite useful. And it seems to be not as, how should I say, not as situational as Soren stuns. Because if you recall, Soren, the only way he can stun is if he attacks an enemy who bonks against some sort of terrain. But in her case, she actually has, as we will reveal later, 4 different parts of her kit. She has 4 different ways to stun her enemies, which I think is kind of a big deal. Another thing too is that, like I mentioned before, she is a crit DPS, and her damage increases the more she is able to crit. More specifically, what I mean by this is that every time she crits, she will follow up with another kick, and I think the multipliers on these kicks are pretty respectable. And as we will find out later with her hero focus, she also not only has crit implemented into her kit, but she also has haste, I think at a minimum. And you know, she also, I didn't realize this until now, she has the ability to dodge normal attacks from time to time and retaliate with a kick that deals damage and stuns. So I think this is very useful because I think part of the reason why Soren has not seen much play is because, yeah, he does have as part of his kit the ability to mitigate damage, but he doesn't have the ability to flat out dodge attacks, the same way that Lily May does. Heck, Lily May, the only defensive part about her kit is the CC immunity and her ability to dodge attacks from time to time and enter the invincibility state, but that is enough to make her survive very well. And I'm hopeful that Lenya's ability to dodge attacks, as well as another part of her kit where she gets damage reduction of 35% by anyone who is not her target, I think hopefully the combination of these 2 things, along with the 4 different ways of stunning, will help keep her alive. Because remember, she is a one-range rogue. Yeah, so.
However, Lenya can't always dodge attacks. This effect can only be triggered once in a while.
Right.
She sounds so
We'll delve
powerful
deeper
when
into
you
that
surround
later.
her. But do you know what Lenya's biggest worry is?
Is it about being the new captain of the Dust Patrollers? Lenya just wanted an ordinary life, but now she's appointed as captain by Lenya and has to take on the responsibility of protecting her team.
You're wrong. Her biggest worry every single day is what to eat.
That's like me.
When
That's
Lenya
exactly like
uses her
me.
ultimate skill, Wild Duel,
Okay, this is...
targets the enemy with the highest cumulative damage, dashes at them, and delivers a flying kick that deals damage. The target will be knocked back in a straight
Whoa,
line.
okay, I didn't know she kicked that
She then
far.
follows up with a second kick. Lenya is in an unaffected status while performing the kick.
CC immune.
After landing, she initiates a duel.
Okay, so that's the
sword
sword, doing the, yeah, the sword thing.
And the enemy prioritize attacking each other. Lenya's
Okay, so I want to speak on that ultimate because I think this is what makes Lenya super cool. You know, up until this point, we haven't really had any hero, not even a tank, who's able to draw aggro quite like Lenya. Because if you think of other tanks that draw aggro, such as Entendre and I believe Granny as well, they don't really draw aggro if you think about it. I mean, it's not something that first pops up to mind when you think of Entendre and Granny, although it is part of their kit. I mean, here, as you saw from the ultimate, which by the way is a 300 energy ultimate, so it is an ultimate that is very cheap, which she should be able to activate quite often, or relatively speaking, compared to other heroes' ultimate activations. And what her ultimate does is that she basically targets the enemy that has dealt the highest cumulative damage at this point, knocks them to a spot on the map that it is not occupied, and then they engage in a duel. And this is very important because when they enter a duel, which we will talk about how long it lasts. Actually, yeah, it lasts 12 seconds. It's a long time. So they have a 12-second duel. And during this duel, the highest DPS enemy that you targeted with her will be aggroed onto Lenya, which I think has huge implications, not only of her taking pressure off of your primary tank, but she also takes pressure away from glass cannons, like Diano, for instance, or just any squishy DPS in the back row who you want to draw aggro away from. And I'm thinking about Sylvina, I'm thinking about Vala, heroes who are able to deal high amounts of cumulative damage, and also they attempt to surgically remove one of your allies. Lenya has the potential to quickly draw their attention away from the DPS that they were targeting, and draw their attention away for 12 seconds.
Skill is closely related to the duel. When winning resolve is
Okay, so this is her EX
unlocked,
weapon.
Lenya activates her full potential once the duel begins, boosting her crit damage and attacks. Her flurry kick skill also unleashes a super kick instead of a power kick, with increased damage and stun duration. If she deals more damage than her target by the end of the duel, she is considered the winner. Winning the duel will increase the duration of her full potential effects. I do think Lenya, while not the most outstanding among the patrollers, is very reliable.
We will talk more about
No
exactly
wonder Lenya
what those
regards
stat
her so
boosts
highly.
are after this
I
trailer.
wondered if there will be more stories about Lenya in the future.
What do you think? I heard that the Wilders are also hosting a festival called
Okay, I
the
don't care
Betlenia
too much about
Ceremony.
this.
Maybe
Let me boost ahead. Oh, okay, so they don't show the date. I'm pretty sure it's going to be this week that Lenya's released. But anyways, let's get right into the juicy part, which is her... Oh, sorry. Holy, wow. Her kit. So, as you can see here... Wow. Okay. She's an A-rank Wilder rogue, physical 1 range. So I was a little disappointed that she's physical, which means that she won't be as easy to slot in an Aaron team as I was hoping. But I kind of had a feeling that she would be a physical DPS anyway, so it's fine. Alright, so let's get right into it. So her ultimate wild duel, Lenya targets the enemy who has dealt the highest cumulative damage and dashes at them, delivering a flying kick that deals 200% damage and knocks them back in a straight line toward an open area, as we saw in the trailer. She then follows up with a second flying kick, dealing 200% damage before initiating a duel with that enemy. The duel lasts for 12 seconds, during which both Lenya and the enemy prioritize attacking each other. So, okay, Lenya's flying kick can stun the enemy for 2 seconds. So the flying kick was the first kick, and she is unaffected while performing the kicks. Ooh, okay. So it's kind of Shakir-esque, right? Because when Shakir is in his lupine aura, he is also unaffected, which means that you can't crowd control him. I think this is a very important part of his kit, because especially in, say, like a Dream Realm setting, it can be kind of annoying when the enemy, stuns your allies for 2 seconds. I mean, as we saw with Setsahara, the snake boss, he is capable of interrupting you for 2 seconds. So, her being in an unaffected state, if, the Farlight Games devs continue to release different enemies that are able to crowd control you, which we're seeing a lot more in drill runs now, as another example, the unaffected state will continue to become more and more valuable. And notice how this is a 300 energy requirement, so that is a fraction of what an ultimate typically costs. I think cheaper ultimates would be like Shakir with 800 energy requirements. So a 300 energy requirement, it's not instant. Her ultimate's not instant, so she wouldn't automatically target, say, like a Lily May when at the start of battle. But it's fast enough to where she can draw the attention of the highest damaging DPS on the opposing side quite quickly. So that's very good news for people who want to build teams like Diano comps, where they need a more reliable way to draw the enemy DPS's aggro away from Diano. Now onto the second skill here. So Tornado Strike. Passive, Lenya blocks a normal attack from her current target if the target is within 1 tile. So it's only from a melee enemy, which is actually more likely to trigger than you would think, because remember, she is a 1-range unit, so she will likely be targeted by a 1-range enemy as well. She then retaliates with a kick that deals 260% damage and stuns the target for 2 seconds. The effect can be triggered once every 6 seconds and makes Lenya unaffected while active. So yet another way for her to be unaffected, which means she'll be CC immune. Notice how this is a second way for her to stun the target, right, for 2 seconds. This is her way to block a normal attack, which means she receives 0 damage from that normal attack. And also, the active phase, Lenya performs a tornado kick, dealing 110% damage 3 times to the surrounding enemies. Yeah, so within melee range. Okay, moving on to her other skill, Flurry Kicks. Lenya increases her crit by 15, which is pretty respectable. When dealing critical damage with her normal attacks, she immediately follows up with a power kick that deals 200% damage and stuns the enemy for 1 second. So this is just like a very brief interrupt. This is the third part of her kit that stuns the enemy. And it also increases her crit, which is quite nice. So this skill incentivizes you to, if you have any way to increase the frequency of her crits, then, whether it be in the form of magic charms as an example, or whatever is revealed or introduced in the second Waves of Intrigue season, then, you'll want to build her in such a way where she will crit more often. Okay, and then this is her Enforce skill. This is her Supreme Plus. Reduces damage taken from enemies other than her target by 35%. So, just to put this into perspective, when you have the main Fresto and an Illusion Fresto side by side along the same row, they each get a 30% damage reduction. Just by having the formation be like that. This is a passive skill, a Supreme Plus ability that allows her to automatically, without doing anything, to consistently over the course of the fight take 35% less damage from anyone who she's not fighting. I almost said ranged units, but I would presume that if say she's being fired at from afar, from say like an Arden, which is quite common, then she'll be able to shrug that off. And actually, even in a melee situation, anyone who is not who she's not targeting will deal 35% less damage. I mean, that over the course of a battle, that can be quite impactful. I want to say this is what I thought Soren's passive ability would do for him. So I'm hopefully this will, on top of her being able to block normal attacks every 6 seconds, I hope this improves her survivability, because it doesn't appear that she has leech rate as part of her kit like Shakir does. And mind you, Shakir has a 13 to 15% damage reduction from her Lupine Aura. This enhanced force is triple that. And this is from multiple targets. Like literally 4 out of 5 of the targets are dealing less damage to her. Alright, so moving on to Winning Resolve. This is her EX weapon. Lenya unlocks her full potential once a duel begins, increasing her crit damage boost by 55. Wow. Okay, that's 55 on top of the 15 from her other skill, so that's 70. Increases her attack by 15% during the duel. I didn't know that. While at her full potential, her Flurry Kick skill delivers a super kick instead of a power kick, dealing 70% damage 8 times. So that's 560% total damage, and stuns the enemy for 2 seconds. And mind you, this is the primary target, right? That's the highest damage dealing DPS that she basically cornered in an open area. So very cool. And as you level up her EX weapon, gains more crit, gains more attack, up to 65 extra crit and 20% extra attack. That's actually a huge boost. Oh, and at EX10, if Lenya deals more damage than her target by the end of the duel, she is considered the winner. Winning the duel increases the duration of her full potential effects by 8 seconds. And the full potential effects are the crit damage boost and the attack boost. Wow. Okay. And then the hero focus increases her haste by up to 20. So, I mean, she's essentially a crit DPS that is also a stun bot, right? She has 4 different ways to stun the enemies. And what else? I mean, to be able to... this is the ultimate crowd control, right? Distract the attention of the highest damage dealing DPS. And, as more and more threats have been revealed, initially it was Scarlita, right? Where it's very difficult to counter Scarlita if you don't have a Scarlita of your own. You almost have to counter with 2 heroes, such as Coco and Haywin combination, right? If you don't have a Scarlita of your own. Or you have heroes like Lily May, where if you absolutely wanted to counter her, you would essentially want to bring one hero to bait her out of her defensive stance, right? Like let's say an Aaron or a Brian who's able to ult immediately, and then you have like another hero who has an advantage against Lily May, such as the Shakir, to actually appropriately counter her. Lenya, as some of the people have mentioned on Discord, she by herself can draw aggro of the deadliest enemy, right? So, and stun them. And she can stun other enemies too, not just the enemy that she's focused on during the duel. So I think that she has the potential definitely to to slot into arena PvP teams. Now, with her being physical and with Aaron teams being, just so refined that, Aaron has so many partners at this point, right? Like Aaron, you can combo with Olmus as a tank, with the crowd controlling it, triggering Olmus's passive ability, prolonging the enemy's, just prolonging the enemy's inability to act for an additional 2 seconds. And then, Aaron wants to be with crowd control mages. But in Lenya's case, what I anticipate will happen is, I think another wilder archetype or another wilder splash potential can happen. I think the most obvious one for me right now is a Diurnal comp, because right now I am building my Diurnal. If you've watched my previous video, you would know this, that I'm basically running a Diurnal with a Leica and Parisa, or a Parisa and Damien. Actually, most likely it'll be Parisa and Damien, along with a third, intoxication trigger, which would be in the form of either an enlightening spell or an evocation spell. And then you would have someone, I could see like Lenya, who draws aggro away from Diurnal. If you want to run Diurnal on defense, then you can have someone like Lenya to quickly draw aggro of, say, like a Sylvina or say like a Vala away from Diurnal onto Lenya. And then you could round, off the team with, say, like a Thorin or a Foresto. What's really nice is that Lenya is a wilder sharing the same faction as Leica, as Parisa, which means that maintaining a higher faction bonus is a little bit easier with Diurnal now. As many of you know, Diurnal doesn't have many good teammates, but even though Lenya doesn't really boost or provide a temporary buff on Diurnal, but the fact that she can draw aggro away from him for a whole 12 seconds, that could be just enough time that Diurnal needs in order to go up into the air and clean up, right? And I expect Lenya, with her high crit damage, attack percent, and haste boost from her kit, to soften up the enemies for Diurnal. So that, I think, is one viability for Lenya. I can also see Lenya playing a niche role in AFK stage pushing, because with her multiple ways of creating, one of the most momcast parts about AFK stage pushing is when you push high enough where if you let the enemies act for even a split second, the enemies like the tornadoes, or say like the Shakir or Thorin or Brutus, oh my god, those annoying enemies, Saturana, that are able to heal up to full instantly if you even give them a split second, a breathing room. Lenya, with 4 different ways to stun the enemy, could be another stun bot ally that you could slot in from time to time in your AFK stage pushing team to control the enemy and clear the stage. Other AFK stage pushing teams, I think that she is definitely splashable in other team comps. I think that, one person was mentioning that Walker is seeing a return in various game modes, and part of it is because of his ability to stun multiple enemies simultaneously. It's entirely possible that you could see a Lightbearer Wilder team comp form, where you have Lenya and Walker locking down the enemies, and then the rest of your team, however you want to, create them, is able to, to do the DPS and finish off the opposing team. So you could see a scenario like that. Now, Lenya's viability in an Aaron team, I can see that too. If for whatever reason, like let's say you are in Supreme Arena, map 2, right? That's hyper offensive. A lot of people are not even running a tank besides Olmus or Granny. So, Lenya does have tanking capabilities in the sense that she is able to draw the attention away drawing the highest damage dealing enemies' attention away from the rest of your team, which can be very valuable to, keep your squishier DPSs like Arden and Carolina alive longer. So now, as to her viability in Dream Realm, I think it really depends. Obviously all 4 forms of stunning the enemy will not apply because Dream Realm bosses are CC immune. You can still crit against the boss, which means that, if she's kicking away, doing a ton of follow-up kicks and, dishing out a ton of damage that way, maybe she could have some viability. Although it would be very strange to release 3 back-to-back heroes that have an impact on Dream Realm. If the devs choose to keep Alpha Bear, maybe Lenya will have some viability against the Alpha Bear because of her ability to block normal attacks. I mean, as you know, Alpha Bear decreases in Endless mode your party healing by 85%. So being able to just flat out dodge attacks or block attacks can be very valuable. I mean, that's essentially what Lily May does, right? She enters invincibility state. She's also able to dodge attacks. And Lenya, along the same vein, shares the same faction of Lily May, which is a plus, and she's able to block attacks, and she's able to do a lot of damage potentially. I mean, she's a rogue, not a tank, and she has so many different ways to boost her damage output. So anyways, those are my initial thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Oh, well, is she a must pull? I would say no. The reason being that, two reasons. One reason is because a large part of her kit seems to revolve around her duel mechanic as well as her stunning abilities. So if she is not able to deal more damage than a Dream Realm boss during the duel, I'm not even sure. I would presume you would enter a duel with the Dream Realm boss 100% of the time, right? So that might be a good thing, actually. We'll see. I mean, if she ends up allowing your team to achieve a higher score on at least 2 Dream Realm bosses, oh my god. I think a lot of people are going to Monka, because a lot of people are already skipping Mikola. We'll see. That'll be really interesting. I mean, maybe if she's like Mikola, where she's viable in endgame team comps, but she's not like the 100% number 1 team comp in Dream Realm, then I think she would be skippable.